Hello guys, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to talk about HTML semantics. We're going to talk about how to write properly structured HTML, and we're also going to talk about things known as commenting. So basically, for example, what a comment is something that it's exactly that. It's just a comment, right? So if you're writing a bunch of code and if you want to write a description for what a particular block of code does, or if a particular line of code does, you can add something called a comment. And basically a comment won't execute while the code is being executed. And before we begin, please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. And make sure you hit that bell icon's notification so you get a notification every time we drop a new video. Okay, everybody, here we go. So now in our last video, we basically touched on forms, tables, also things such as lists, such as unordered lists and ordered lists. Now in this video, we're going to do something different, right? We're going to build off of the foundation that we left off in our previous videos. Okay, so what I have here is I'm creating a brand new page, and I'm going to call it mypage.html, and I'm going to save it inside my HTML exercise file, my folder, excuse me, that I had created. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and hit save and just make sure that you have the HTML, the .html extension. Okay, this is just going to be a separate HTML file that we're going to work off of. And then just go ahead and hit save. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and hit save. Okay, so now what's going to happen is it's going to open up a brand new blank HTML page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the browser and now see that I have this old thing that we worked on. I'm going to open up a new tab. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag in my new page. Okay, so now I have a brand new page. And let's just test it out. So now since you have Sublime or whatever other text editor by this point, you should be able to do some shortcuts, right? So let's do Shift and open caret, type HTML. So it gives me the autocorrect for HTML. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. Okay, and I'm going to give my page a title, and I'm going to say landing page, page. Okay, and then let's go to the body. Let's tab in because we want to have good indentation. For any developer, whether you're just starting out or even a lot of senior developers, I've seen code that is not well indented, that's not written cleanly, and that's something you definitely want to keep an eye on, is writing clean code, because it's not just you most likely that's going to be reading it. There are going to be other developers, teams that are going to be working on it, and when you're working under tight deadlines and tight crunches, you don't want to spend time. You don't want to spend time, or you don't want your team to spend any time, extra time trying to read through your code because you didn't bother to indent right. All right, so let's just open up an H1, okay, just to test out, and we just say test, and let's go back to our browser and then refresh, and there we go. Now we have a test. All right, so what we're going to learn in this video again is I'm going to introduce you guys to something called a div. A div is just an element that stands for a division. So it's basically a block of it's just a block of HTML inside which you can you can add styled elements, you can add text inside of them, you can add basically any HTML element inside a div. And this is one of the prominent parent elements of HTML, inside which you can add, like I mentioned a second ago, basically any other HTML element, and it'll basically segregate that into one logical block. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, once we actually start building stuff, it'll make a lot more sense. Okay, so just for now, just think of a div as a segment, like a section of itself. Okay, so now I want to touch on our very first point here, which is semantics, right? So when you write what I mean by semantics is that when you write HTML, you basically want to have your elements labeled correctly. So for example, writing an H1, right? And this is me saying this is an H1, right? So this is good semantics. We could do something like, in contrast, we could do a p tag and say this is just like an H1. And basically what we could do is use CSS and give this p tag a style, a font size that is similar to H1, and make it look and behave just like an H1, but that's not good semantics. So our elements should represent the purpose for which they were built. Okay, so that's that. Okay, now let's get into something called sections, right? So a section is basically just that. It's just like a div, and a section basically will represent a section on your page, right? So I can make a section here called we can call this our main hero text. Okay, call that. Whoa. And let's make this a p tag. Okay, let's save it. Let's go back. So this is our main hero text. Now, if you right click on here, and I'm going to show you something cool. So if you're on an HTML page or any website, what you can do is you can right click and do inspect. And now what that's going to do, it's going to bring open something called the dev tools. And now inside the dev tools, you can see all the HTML under the elements tab. Okay. Now under the elements tab, this will give you this will show you the exact HTML on the page. So you can see our exact DOM tree here. Okay, you can see our exact DOM tree, and right, you have our doc tab, you have our HTML, you have our head tag, we call the landing page, and inside that we have our body represented by our section. And now you can see, and hopefully this is starting to make more sense to you guys. Okay, and this is our main hero text. Likewise, let's add another section, and we can call it. We'll put you know what? Let's call this an H1 because since it's in hero, right? We'll make this an H2. Oh, why that didn't autocorrect? There we go. Okay, let's say section 2. Okay, and we'll save it. We'll go back, and there we go. Okay, so now we made that another section. Now let's just make another section 3 here, just to do things in threes. I think they make more sense. Okay, and this is our section 3. So now we have exactly 3 sections. Okay, and we still have our dev tools open. Oh, why did I call that section 3? There we go. No, I don't want this. Okay, well, since I already did that, let me just show you something cool. So this right here, this is called an emulator. You can basically test for mobile responsiveness, and you can check from this drop down here. You can test on any device. And right now, I'm inside Google Chrome. So say if I wanted to see how this looks on an iPad, right? Let me move this up here, just so it gives you guys a better representation. And I'll make this, let's see, 75. So right now, this is how our cool web page will look on a tablet. Okay, and then you can cycle through and you can add different custom devices here inside edit and things like that. But yeah, just to kind of give you guys an idea, since I already hit this by accident, we use this for in development. We use this to basically test for mobile responsiveness. Okay, well that's the topic for down the road. Okay, so let's go back. Now I just wanted to show you guys in the dev tool exactly what happened, and let's move this guy here. Now you see, once I added a new section here, right? Section 3. Now you can see in our DOM tree here, all this was added. Okay, so this inside the elements tab is always going to represent your HTML page, the HTML page that you're currently on. Okay. Now, as we make sections, we can also I noticed that our HTML doesn't have a footer. All right, so we'll make a footer. Good semantics, okay? So basically that's what I mean by semantics, okay? And then now, say we want a nav bar, right? So we could technically do something like this, section, and call this nav bar, okay? And we can save and go back and call this our nav bar. But you see in our DOM tree here, see what happened? It's not a nav bar, right? It's a section. So how's our browser going to know, that this particular element here is a nav bar? So in order to tell the browser that, hey, this is a nav bar, we can use something called a nav element, and we just close it like that, call that, refresh it, and now we have a nav bar. And this is a built-in HTML element. You can't really write, you cannot write custom HTML elements. These are all built-in elements that that are laid out for you by the W3 schools, W3 Foundation, the world. I believe it's the World Consortium that basically lays down the guidelines for all things web development. Definitely give them a look. All right, as I sip my tea, so we have our nav bar. Okay, so we're going to call that the site nav bar, and don't worry about the styling right now. I just want to get you guys used to the actual elements that we use in HTML. Okay, now let's say I wanted to, in my section 1, let's get rid of all these guys. Okay, so we have our wrappers here. We're calling this our site nav bar. Okay, and we'll come back to this. We'll add a little, some stuff in there to kind of show you guys. But you know what? Since we're here, say we want to add some mock pages, right? What we can do is we can make an unordered list. Okay, and let's make a list item here. We can call that home. Let's make another one. Let's make yeah, 4 is good. All right, make this about. We call this contact, and we call this one privacy policy, not privacy. Oh, we can just call this terms. A lot of companies do that. So now what's going to happen when I hit this, right? So my point behind doing this is inside our nav bar, we want to have links to all the separate pages, okay? And what you can do is for each one of these, we can just wrap these all in an A tag, okay? And then this is going to link to that specific page. But right now, since we only have one page, what we can do is we'll link this to, just to show you guys that how the links actually work. We'll just make this index.html. Okay, I want to save. Go back here, and now you see what happened there. Now when I click on it, it didn't do that. Oh, there we go. All right, so now we're back to our cool website. Okay, so inside href, that's where you have the link for whatever page that you want to go to. So likewise, if I want to link this to an about page, the reason why I put a hashtag there is because what am I doing? Is because I was thinking it's a blank page, just like this guy here. Okay, so since we don't have an about page, we're just gonna leave a hashtag there, and that's just gonna, really link to that same page. Okay, so let's just close these, and now we're all good. Okay, so now we have our links in our nav bar. Okay, and so we click on home, we go back to our little cool website, and you notice that because we're in the same directory, I made home link to index.html again, which is the first little page that we built. Okay, so now you must be thinking, hey, look at how ugly that looks. It's just it's like this vertical list, and it's got these bullet points and things of that nature. We'll get around to the styling in a moment, perhaps in a later video, but let's just go through the HTML of it first, because understanding the HTML of it is really going to help you understand all of it as in a broad aspect. Okay, so now since we spoke about the nav element, now you see how we have all these empty sections, right? We have our nav bar here, we have our unordered list, where we have the links to each page. Okay, now let's say in our hero section here, our very first section, and I guess I can tie comments into this as well. So before we even get into the other elements, let's just make a comment, right? So what is a comment? A comment is basically something that's not going to get run by the parser, and it just identifies a particular part of the code. So the way you write a comment is not by doing this is a nav bar. Okay, so that's not how you do it. So basically the way you do it is open. So you hit down shift, open caret. This is an HTML. Okay, exclamation mark, dash dash. You see how everything went gray, that's because we haven't closed it. And now we can write nav bar, and then we add a space after our comment, another dash dash, and close caret. That's it. That's how we write a comment. Okay. Now I'm just going to copy this nav bar, and then we'll call this guy section 1. I personally always write my comments in caps because all the code is going to be in lowercase. So it just helps distinguish, even though you have the colors and all that, but just it's really up to you. As long as it's readable and it does its job of identifying parts of the code, that's really all the purpose of a comment is. And you want to leave as many sensible comments as you can, but don't remember not to go overboard. Like you don't want to write like, things like, home, like, or, you know, about, because then it's just repetitive at that point and it's just confusing. So, and it doesn't make any sense. And the part that's more computations for the parser to, it's going to affect performance at some point. But even though it's very minuscule, it's still going to affect performance at some point. Okay, so let's make this. So we've identified our sections here. Okay, section 1, section 2, section 3. So now, let's say in our first section, we want to add like, let's say some hero text identifying what our page is going to be, right? So remember, we're going to make an H1, and this is our largest heading. And good convention, good semantics dictate that you should only use headings one time each on each page. So you only want to have one H1, one H2, and one H3. So one of each, right? So we can write welcome to our awesome blog. Okay, so this is going to be the page heading, and we call this a hero. We can call this even a hero here. And a hero in development terms, design terms, what have you, it's just the main banner, of a. So for example, just to show you guys, so if I went to Unsplash, Unsplash, there we go. This right here is the hero section, right here, this big banner, okay? That makes sense? That's called the hero section. All right, so now let's go back to our code here. So we have an H1, okay, and this is gonna be our main awesome blog heading. Now under that, let's put a subheading and we call it, here we talk about all things development. Oh, you know what? Let's just do cars, more specific. All right, we'll hit save. So this is our heading, and this is our, our subheading. Okay, and then let's go back to our DevTools here and see. Now we've added these to something called the DOM. All this you see here is the DOM, right? And the DOM stands for the Document Object Model. Okay, I want to just show you guys something. What is the DOM? Just for you guys to get a good look at this. If you guys want to read up more about it, go to this page here. Give me a second. CSS tricks. What is the DOM? Okay, this will give you like a full further reading. This is your homework. Okay, so go ahead and read that, and it'll make a little bit more sense to you. But do that after watching this video. Okay. And we're gonna make more videos on all this stuff down the road, but I really want you guys to understand this stuff. My goal is to actually teach you guys, and I want you guys to learn, and I'm not gonna shamelessly self-promote every time. So just go ahead and do some extra reading as well. Because the more you get into development, you're gonna have to teach yourself basically everything. At this point, you're probably self-taught anyways, but the majority of your learning will be done on the job. So on the job, you're going to be learning things every day. You're going to have to be looking at blogs, looking at different posts, Stack Overflow posts. And for those of you who don't know what Stack Overflow is Stack Overflow is just a place where you can developers go and just share questions about some code that they have, and people answer. And basically, it's kind of like Reddit, right? Or like, is it Reddit or is it Quora that people just upvote, downvote, upvote the best answer? Okay, so just keep that in your back pocket. So now let's say in our section 2 here, we want to have some featured blog. Okay, and for that we can use something called an article element. Okay, so we're going to say article, and what an article element does is it basically just distinguishes a section that has literally something to do with any kind of article, or like a blog, or just a little snippet of a featured blog, sort of. I mean, the element pretty much speaks for itself, but you're not going to have an article on every page, right? Because you can have uh, you know a completely different website, say for I don't know, math tutorials, and um, well, I don't know if that's a good idea, but I don't know if that's a good reference, but you get my point. Okay, so now in our article, we can call this our featured article. Featured article. Okay, and we can, and here we'll just do an H2 and say um, uh, check out the new 2021 Jeep Grand Cherokee. Okay, and down below we can just add some description, and I want to add some lorem ipsum. So lorem, there we go. For some reason, I don't know if I'm doing this wrong, but I always have an issue with lorem ipsum in Sublime. I think it's broken. Now you see what I did there. So say this was uh, actually, you know what? Ignore that. Okay, so this is our text element here. This is our. Well, I'm sure we can shorten that up a bit. So let's take 3 lines out. Okay, we'll hit save. We'll go back, hit refresh, and now this is our main section 2, right? This is our uh, featured a featured blog section. And then let's just say maybe we can have a button here that says read more. What am I doing? There we go. Okay, and now this is our section here, read more. Now, if you've noticed, there's only white, since we have 0 styling on this page, okay? CSS and styling is something we're gonna get to, just be patient with me. But let's say we wanted to add just a thin divider, just for namesake, right, for this video. We can use something called an HR tag. An HR tag basically just represents a horizontal line, a thin gray horizontal line. We're gonna put one more there. We'll hit save, and now look at the magic. We're gonna hit refresh. Bam, look at that. Oh, we didn't put one above the nav, right there. Okay, there we go. So now we have dedicated sections to our page, okay? So that is the article element. So now what if we wanted to just have, you know what? Let's add a summary as well to our in our hero section here. Okay, so we could say we wanted to put a little summary under our heading and our subheading. We can use something called a summary, not dummery, our summary, and we can jack some of this lorem ipsum here. Let's grab the first sentence. There we go. And you see how basically each element represents exactly what its purpose is. So our section's purpose is to basically create an actual section, right? Our H1's purpose is to have a call out title, a main title. Our paragraph here represents just a line of text, and our summary here represents an actual summary, right? And our horizontal line represents a thin line. And same here. This is an article, and this is just a featured article. So that's why we put it inside an article tag. And our button here represents an actual button. Okay, so hit save, hit refresh, and there we go. Okay, so this is slowly starting to come together. And now let's say we wanted to have, uh, mm, what else can we add in here, right? So we can have, let's say, we wanted to have a contact section, right? So we'll do a contact form again. Okay, contact us. Now, since we put in, let me just make one thing clear. Since we made an H1 here, say we wanted to put a, so we never put a title over here. Oh, actually we did. We put an H2 here. But let's say we wanted to now um, put a form here. So let's just go ahead and do that. So yeah, just to backtrack, I made my point about the H2s. Okay. All right, guys. So um, now let's say we want to create a contact form, right? So what we can do, so basically we have our blog here, and we say we want to subscribe to this awesome blog. Okay, so how we're going to do that? Now in our last video, we spoke about creating a form element, right? So let's just going to type in form. Okay, so inside our form, we're going to have a number of elements. We're going to have inputs, and we're going to have a submit button, right? We're going to need an input for first name, last name, email address, and we can even have a check, like a checkbox for, you know, send me weekly emails or just one monthly email, right? But let's go ahead and start writing that. So now we can just write something like input, right? And hit enter, and the beauty of Sublime again. And we can call that, our type can be text, and our name can be first name. Okay, now let's hit save for a minute. Okay, and let's see, you know what, let's just give, let's hit save. Let's go back, and now we have our input form, right? But before we can do that, let's just give it a, let's just put an H3 here, and just say contact us. Okay, now, so you understand, before we get to the point of forms, you get the point of how we should only be using one heading size per page. Now let's say we want to, and this brought up a good point, right? So let's say we want to have this heading for this section and this guide to be the same size. So what do we do, right? A good convention is to make them both p tags. Okay, let's make them both p tags. And I did this solely for display purposes. Okay, and what we can do is, using CSS, we can include one specific style, and we can assign it to a class. Now, since we're here, let me just give you a quick introduction to CSS. CSS is a styling language that you can use to give things like font sizes and colors and layout styles to a website. Now you can write CSS like this. Let's go back to this guy here. So you can put a CSS style inline. So if we wanted to add a font size to this particular text, so we can do something like style, okay? And we're gonna write font size, semicolon, and we can do 22 px. Px stands for pixels, okay? We'll copy that. I'll put this guy here. Okay, and then let's hit save, and then let's hit refresh. There we go. Now you see, our headings are the same exact size because we gave them both the same exact style. Now we'll get into selectors and IDs and separating off into separate style sheets because we'll talk about that in a minute. But let's just put semicolon here. Semicolon. After a CSS command, you always want to put a semicolon to terminate the line. Okay. Now, let's just hold that thought on styling, but I just wanted to give you a quick introduction to inline styling. Okay, now we have our input here for first name. Now, we would need something called a label. And a label, what it does, it just represents the element that's that it's actually supposed to represent. So we can do something like, and I know we covered this in the last video, but always good to reiterate on things, right? So we're going to label for. All right, now our label here is going to correspond to the ID, and the unique ID for this input. Now, we don't have a unique ID, so how do we do that, right? So we literally just write ID equals and open close quote. Now, what an ID is it's literally specific to the element on which it's placed. So you can't use the same ID on, let's say another input here that I have last name. That's bad, right? So you want to have F name, right? So this is the ID for this particular element, and then L name would be for the last name. Okay. Now we can just copy that, double click copy, and hit 4. So now this label is connected to this element here. It refers to this element. This is the target for this label, okay? And the for attribute will always be referred by the ID of that element, okay? So that's for first name. All right, so let's copy this, and let's do the same thing for this guy here. Let's do last name, okay? And let's hit save. Go to our browser, first name, last name. And you see how it ended up on one line? Now you tell me how we're going to fix that. All right, using a break tag. We can add another one too. Hit save. There we go. First name, last name. Okay. Now let's, what we can do is, for now, since we're not writing any CSS yet, let's just break these off into one line like that. Okay, there we go. Now that's much better. And we can even put a placeholder, some placeholder text, a placeholder. Example, John Doe. No, just John. And we could put placeholder, example Doe. Okay, let's hit save. Go back. There we go. Now John is the first name, Doe is the last name. Okay. Now what we can do is, before we add our submit button, let's just add some more spacing here. And now let's put a checkbox for whether you want weekly subscriptions or do you want a monthly subscription. So we can do something like label subscription. Okay, and we'll put a 4 here. We'll leave it. Oh, autocorrect sometimes is not ideal. Now we can do something called an input, and we're going to call it a type equals checkbox. Okay, and we call it subscription. Let's just call it that, and then we can just, oh, too many typos today. Give it an ID of sub S. Sure. Okay. All right. So that's that. Okay, and now we can okay, so let's say we want to, for our subscription here, let's say we want to call this, so let's say we want to, let's tinker with our subscriptions. So say we want articles on either Grand Cherokees, okay, and call this, I'm just going to change this up, guys, sorry, Grand C, and we can give this same Grand C, and our label here can point to that. Okay, or we want a subscription for Cherokees. All right, we're going to skip a line here. Okay, we want both these checkboxes to be on the same line. So we're not going to add a break tag. Okay, so let's just make this Cherokees. Okay, same here. Name Cherokee and ID Cherokee. And yeah, let's do that. And now let's add 2 break lines, and then we'll just add a proper submit button. We can do input type equals submit, but let's just do a button for simplicity. Submit. Oh, submit. We'll hit save. Go back. There we go. And we'll make that a. There we go. There we go. So now we can check these. So you can have both or you can have one. It's really up to you. So that is our contact form, right? So again, we'll go to our section here. So this is our contact us section, okay? And then inside that, you see our form element with our specific labels. Now this label refers exactly to our first name input tag. Now you see the break lines here. Those are the spaces that you see in between, okay? And vice versa. Basically, everything we wrote is right here. And something cool is this is all editable, but it's not going to save the actual HTML. But if I wanted to see how this contact us section would look all caps, then I could just go up here. I can either double click on it and just start typing contact us and just hit enter. There we go. But once you refresh the page, it's going to go back to how it was. This will just manipulate what's inside the page view. It's not going to affect the actual source code. Okay, so once this is more for debugging, and once you get into more complicated websites and app builds, then you can get into all that stuff. Okay, so with that being said, let's wrap up this section here. Let's add a footer here. Okay, and inside our footer we can just have so we want to have say a privacy policy statement, right? So we can use something called a small element. Okay, and let's just skip a line here. So a small element is just going to basically represent very small text. Okay, and inside that, say we want it to be italicized, so we can use something called EM, right? And that's I believe that stands for emotion. I might be wrong, but that's how you write italicized text. So you can say 2021 privacy policy, all rights reserved. Okay, hit save, go back, and now this is our footer section here. We'll just add an HR here, so we'll separate it. There we go. So now we have our footer section here. Okay, so now real quick, since we already started talking about some CSS, I'm just kind of anxious to show you guys some CSS. So I'm going to write some inline CSS for this nav menu item, and we'll wrap that up. We'll call that a video. So see how you have all these bullet points, and you see how it's all in one line. Now if I inspect, you can see this guy here, right? So now list items. So you have in HTML, you have block elements and inline block elements, right? So those are two different things. So block elements, basically, see the blue line? Block elements just span the entire width of the page, and an inline block element will basically be a part of basically inline, next to other items as well. Okay, so we'll get a good look at that. So let's do style here. Okay, and let's say I want to get rid of the bullet points. So we'll do list style equals none. All right, we'll hit save, go back, and look at that, gone. Okay, now let's say I want to make them all fit in one line, right? Let's do this. That'll be on the actual list item. Okay, so we can do. Let's go back here. We can do a display inline block. We'll copy this, and with Sublime, it's if say I don't want to put individually on each one, what I can do is I can hit down Command, or I believe it's Control on PC, and click, and just paste it. So there we go. Hit save, go back. There you go. And now if you want to add some more spacing between these, we can do. Let's just select the similar elements here. Hit the right arrow. stand over there and do let's do padding, right? And we'll add 10 pixels. Okay. Oh, we didn't put our semicolon there. Hit save, go back. There we go. All right, so again, this will go back to our little cool site. Nothing, because we don't have pages linked to that. But yeah, hope this video helped. And now we're actually starting to get into more structured ways of writing our HTML. And remember, I promised we're going to get into structures and styling and stuff. Well, there you have it. Hopefully this gave you a good idea, and we wrote some basic inline styles. Now we could very well take these, you know, these styles and write them right inside our head tag here. We can put a style element, excuse me. Go give it a type equals CSS, and we can write all our CSS right in here. But we're not going to do that because in our next video, we're actually going to create a separate style sheet, and we're going to write all our styles inside that particular style sheet, and we'll see the benefits of that, and why that's done, and the different file structures, and how you can link your style sheet to your index.html page. And we're going to get into all that cool stuff, but definitely stay tuned. Thanks for watching. All right, folks, that's it for this time. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share if you haven't already. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.